Lübbecke, Westphalian. Lübke is a town in northeast North Rhine-Westphalia in North Germany. This former county town lies on the northern slopes of the Wiehen Hills and has around 26,000 inhabitants. The town is in the Eastwestphalian district of Minden-Lübbecke. Lübbecke was first mentioned in the records in 775 as hlidbeki and was given town rights in 1279. Geography. Lübbecke is situated just north of the Wiehen Hills, approx. 20 kilometers north of Hefferden, 20 kilometers west of Minden. Location. Lübbecke is located in northeast North Rhine-Westphalia, north of Eastwestphalia, in the southwestern part of the district of Minden-Lübbecke. From a landscape perspective, the town lies in the west of the Minden land. Geographically, most of the built-up area is on the North German plain. Only its southern suburbs lie on the northern slope of the Wiehen Hills, whose crest that marks the southern boundary of the borough. The town itself lies on the edge of the hills, whilst the rest of the borough is more rural in character. The northern boundary of the borough is defined by the Midland Canal. In the northeast of the borough is the Grosses Torf Moor, which, together with the Oppenweier Moor, is the largest moor in Westphalia. Between the wet lowlands south of the Midland Canal, the glacial valley of the river Weser, and the higher ground is a narrow fringe of fertile lower soils at the foot of the Wiehen Hills called the Lübbecke Losland. The far north of the area is part of the Rodendiepenau Geest. In the Geest there are only of the villages of Stockhausen and Alswede and part of Lübbecke industrial estate. The highest hills in Lübbecke's territory are the Heidbrink, the Wurzelbrink and the Neibrink. Next to the town itself is the Rheineberg, the Heidskopf and the Miesenko. The hills in the south of the borough are the highest in the whole of the Wiehen Ridge. In the north the land only attains a height of about 50 meters. The lowest point is about 48 meters. Water bodies. Because the watershed of the Wiehen Hills forms the southern boundary of the borough, almost the entire territory of Lübbecke is drained towards the north. Only the few hectares of land on the southern slopes of the Wurzelbrink drain towards the south. The Ronsaver River flows through the town itself and via the river's Floth and Grossauer to the Weser. The Weser does not cross the borough, however, and even the Grossauer only enters it in the extreme west. The marketed mountain spring water is still of great importance for the breweries in Lübbecke. The borough of Lübbecke does not have many natural lakes. Both the river channels and the lakes and ponds in the moor are man-made. The largest bodies of water of the Mittelland Canal, with about 50 hectares of water surface in Lübbecke's territory, and an unnamed lake in the moor area, which has a contiguous water area of about 9 hectares. All other bodies of water have areas under 1 hectare. A total of 1.5% of the borough's area is covered by water. Geology and natural resources. Geologically, the surface is mainly covered with unconsolidated rock of the Quaternary period, i.e. sand, gravel, loess and glacial till, predominantly from the Pleistocene epoch. In the Wiehen Hills, rocks of the Jurassic period, such as sandstone, also occur on the surface. Of particular importance, today as in the past, is the recovery of limestone for use as ballast for buildings and roads, and there is a large working quarry in the Wiehen Hills, south of Nettelstedt, where rock is broken and crushed. Numerous small quarries in the Wiehen show that there is a long mining tradition in Lübbecke, or appears to have been mined in the hills here for centuries. At Horst Hill there is an old mine gallery. Until the mid-20th century peat was harvested in the Grosser Torf Moor, mainly for use in domestic fireplaces. Old transport systems still existed until a few years ago, when production stopped due to the exhaustion of the deposits and for reasons of nature conservation. Despite the steep natural gradients, water power cannot be used today because the small catchment area of the mountain streams only delivers small quantities of water. In the past, several water mills worked in the borough. There is a water wheel at the foot of the Wurzel brink in the village of Elhausen that can be visited. The use of wind power as a natural resource has recently received a boost. Windmills in places such as Elhausen show that this energy source has been used since ancient times. The borough's location on the North German plain favors the use of wind generators, although they are still less cost-effective than other energy generators. Lübbecke is rated almost everywhere as good to very good in terms of its use of geothermal heat sources, especially borehole heat exchangers, and heat production using heat pumps. Extent and land usage. The borough has a total area of 65 square kilometers, with a maximum west-east extent of 13 kilometers and north-south extent of around 9 kilometers. The borough is predominantly used for agricultural purposes and is thus very rural. In general, only the Wiehen Hills are forested. The following table gives an overview of its land usage. Source: LDS. The most densely populated areas of the fertile foothills, known as the Lübbecke Lowestland. This is where almost all the villages are found. The average population density here is 601,000 inhabitants per square kilometer. The lowlands south of the canal, apart from Lübbecke's industrial area, are very sparsely populated. The Wiehen Hills themselves are unpopulated, as is the Große Torfmoor. The most densely populated district is the town of Lübbecke itself, with some 800 inhabitants per square kilometer. Its population density is twice as high as in the whole borough, with an average of 250 inhabitants per square km. The other parts of the borough are comparatively thinly populated. The percentage of agricultural land is lower than in the rest of the district, but slightly above the national average. The Lübbecke lowest land is very fertile. The soil quality here is 75. As a result, this good soil, where the villages have given it space, is used mainly for agriculture. The cultivation of cereals of all kinds as well as of root crops brings in high yields. There are also scattered fruit orchards. Amongst the special crops grown here, asparagus and strawberries in the north of the borough are worth mentioning. There are only occasional pastures in the vicinity of the hill forests or in along the few meandering streams. As one travels further north, especially northeast towards the peat-in moors, the proportion of grassland steadily increases as the soil becomes poorer and wetter to the peat bog. East of the industrial area, meadows and pastures take up almost the entire land area. In some places the frugal green maize crop still grows, albeit requiring heavy supplies of manure, within the protected area of the peat bog, but still outside of the actual moor. There is some extensive grazing, especially of sheep, almost exclusively for environmental grounds. The Wiehen Hills are mostly covered by forest. Much of the enclosed forest area in Lübbecke is part of the hill forests of the Wiehen Hills, which begins at around 100 to 135 meters and extends to cover the highest peaks. It is mainly made up of spruce forest, but large areas, particularly in the area south of the town, are original beech mixed forests. Apart from the larger woods in Lübbecke land beyond the town limits, there are only small copses in the lowlands which together comprise less than 1 square kilometer. Entirely these are the Stockhauser bush, small copses in the area of the marina, and the birch woods on the Große Torfmoor, on the border of the town to the northwest at Alswede on the territory of Preußische Oldendorf is the approximately 44-hectare Hollwinkel wood. Part of the moor is covered with enclosed birch stands. The relative proportion of forest is almost twice as high as the district average. The relatively high proportion of special terrain is essentially that of the Große Torfmoor. Moors, heath and wasteland cover about 3.3% of the borough. Neighboring municipalities: Hulhorst, Espelkamp, Preasischildendorf, Hill, Petershagen. Division of the borough. According to Section 3 of the main bylaw, the territory of the borough of Lübbecke is amongst the following districts: Lübbecke, Alswied, Blasheim, Elhausen, Gellembeck, Nettelstedt, Obermennen, Stockhausen. Climate: the climate in Lübbecke is dictated by its location in the maritime continental transition region of Central Europe and on the North German plain. The region mainly enjoys a subatlantic maritime climate, but also has occasional continental influences. The winters, influenced by the Atlantic, are generally mild, the summers moderately warm, and its precipitation spread relatively evenly throughout the year. Westerly and southwesterly winds prevail, bringing precipitation with them. As a result of its location in the lee of the Wiehen Hills and Teutoburg Forest, its precipitation is however lower overall than in most of the central upland regions of Ostwestphalian. Only the tops of the hills receive rather more. The annual precipitation figures in the northern part of the borough are 680 mm and on the hills about 800 mm. Air temperatures average 8.9 degrees Celsius. The warmest month is July with 16.9 degrees Celsius. The coldest is January at 0.8 degrees Celsius. In the hills it is around 0.5 degrees Celsius to 1.0 degrees Celsius colder per 100 meters of height. For an average of 37 days, the average daytime temperatures remain below 0 degrees Celsius. The number of hours of sunshine is 1,435 hours per year, with a monthly variation from 200 hours in June to 32 hours in December. History: the settlement of Lübbecke was first mentioned in 775 as hlidbeki in the Frankish imperial annals as the site of a Saxon attack on a Frankish camp. The town is named after the creek today known as Ronsaver and means little beck in English. Lübbecke was the central site of the Saxon hlidbeki gau. In those days there may already have been a church in Hlidbeki that dated back to the Saxon Angrivarii under the Duke Widukind, a tribe who had settled the region during the spread of Christianity under Charlemagne. Lübbecke was the center of an early church parish in the Diocese of Minden, and of the nobility who were native to the area as well as the knightly family in Lübbecke were ministeriales of the bishops of Minden. By 1279 Lübbecke had been given its town charter by the Minden Bishop Vulcan of Schwalenberg. The area was also run by the bishops of Minden from the country castle of Rheineberg. The lords based there came mainly from the knightly family of Lübbecke. The Bergman estates in Lübbecke were, in turn, enforced by the castle. In 1806, 12 of these Bergman estates were recorded in the borough. The Bergmannen also held a majority on the town council, which met in town hall, first mentioned in 1460. From 1295 Lübbecke became part of a canonical church foundation. This was originally founded in 1274 in Alden and der Allee, but moved in 1280 to Neustadt am Rubenberger and in 1295 to Lübbecke to the St. Andreas Church. It remained here until it was abolished in 1810. The foundation had 4 estates within the town. In 1549 the diocesan synod was held here under Bishop Franz von Waldeck. In 1648 the now secular Principality of Minden, to which the present borough belonged, went to Brandenburg, Prussia. The town hall burned down in 1705 and was rebuilt in 1709. In 1765 the Prussian government arranged the division of the marks, which generated a large portion of the revenue of the town through the allocation of rights and the collection of hunting revenue. Lübbecke's protests against the mark division were unsuccessful. Lübbecke's medieval fortifications were preserved up to the beginning of the 19th century. Due to the high cost of maintenance and the limited military value, the fortifications were raised in 1830 and the material used for construction, the walls being transformed into promenades, until the establishment of the de facto French Kingdom of Westphalia in 1807 and the introduction of French administrative structures. The Bergmann lords remained a major center of power in Prussian Lübbecke and hindered the development of a patrician class. The middle-class merchants were, however, always represented on the town council by 6 senatorial seats and provided a civic mayor, who presided over the town jointly with a noble mayor, but the nobility held the reins. The town hall regulations adopted in 1727 by the Prussian government institutionalized this diarchy, and envisaged only 2 senatorial seats. In the Kingdom of Westphalia, Lübbecke became the canton capital in the Département.Du Weser and in the district of Minden, and remained so even when this fell to France in 1811. In 1813 Lübbecke became Prussian again, and after belonging briefly to the civil government Zwischen Weser and Rhine, became part of the Prussian province of Westphalia. After extensive administrative reforms and the dissolution of the Principality of Minden, Lübbecke became part of the newly created Regierungsbezirk Minden and district of Rahden. In 1832 Lübbecke became the administrative seat of a new district combining Rahden with elements of the district of Bund, which was renamed into Lübbecke district. Like almost everywhere in Minden-Ravensburg, the textile industry initially emerged in proto-industrial form and, later, was supported by the Prussian state with the construction of the Cologne-Minden Railway and its branch line from Bund to Rahden, opened in 1899. The cigar industry developed into an important economic factor in Bundland and the surrounding towns, including Lübbecke, from about 1860. In 1863 August Lase founded a cigar factory, which had 6,000 employees by 1938. This included employees in its many branches, because just as before in the proto-industrial textile sector, cigars were often cut, rolled and pressed in the home or in stalls. These two branches of the economy, the textile and tobacco industries, are still represented in Lübbecke today, even though their influence now lags behind that of engineering and other industries. In 1907, the last section of the Minden District Railway to Lübbecke opened. In the 1950s, the narrow-gauge railway was converted from meter gauge to standard gauge due to the transport of goods. Operations were discontinued in 1974 and the track dismantled between Hill and Lübbecke. In 1912, the first houses were connected to the electrical supply from the Lower Saxon power stations. In 1899, the Gasfabrica Mahallabaum, a local gas company, was founded, the precursor to today's public utilities. From 1934 Lübbecke had a central water supply. In the Second World War, Lübbecke largely escaped attack and was occupied on 3 April 1945 by British troops without great resistance. The nearby town of Bad Oeynhausen became the headquarters of the British forces, and British administrative authorities and military staff elements were also housed in Lübbecke. To that end, 251 of the 432 houses in Lübbecke were commandeered and cordoned off as accommodation for the Allies. Almost the entire town centre became an ex-territorial zone, because all the important administrative buildings of the town's infrastructure went to the British. The finance office on Kaiserstrasse was used as the head office of the British occupation zone authorities. Even after the foundation of the Federal Republic of West Germany, this building remained a base for British military staff, its last use being as the headquarters of the 2nd Armoured Division before it withdrew in 1983. The election of the first freely elected town council took place on 17 October 1948. In 1973, after the communal reforms of the Bielefeld Act, the districts of Minden and Lübbecke were merged into the new district of Minden-Lübbecke, and the entire district administration was moved to Minden. At the same time, the borough of Lübbecke was significantly increased in size by the parishes of Blasheim, Gellenbeck, Elhausen and Nettelstedt, and the farming community of Alswied. Population growth census results. Incorporations. Before the municipal and land reforms that took place on 1 January 1973, the present villages formed their own parishes in Emt Gellenbecke were farming communities attached to parishes, Obermenn, Stockhausen, as well as the eponymous farming community of Blasheim, which belonged to the parish of Blasheim. The community of Alswied gave its name to the parish and district of Alswied. These incorporated areas lay almost entirely south of the Mittelland Canal, whereas the parish of Alswied disbanded on 1 January 1973, and the districts of Emt Gellenbeck and Emt Alswied spread out a long way to the north. For the northern boundary of the borough of Lübeck, newly formed in 1973, the Mittelland Canal was chosen, so that the smaller areas of land north of the canal, including those that had belonged to the town of Lübbecke, were transferred to the town of Westphalian. A bigger reorganization was needed in the region of the former parish of Alswied, its territory north of the canal. The villages of Fiestel and Alswied were separated from the eponymous district of Alswied and incorporated into Westphalian. Only the village of Alswied, lying south of the canal, went to Lübbecke. In the south, Lübbecke was given part of the Wiehen Hills that used to belong to Rheineberg, namely the Rheineberg and the northern slopes of the Hlidbeki. Religion. The populations has been overwhelmingly evangelical Lutheran, since the Prince-Bishopric of Minden accepted the Protestant confession and was secularized in 1648, and, as the Principality of Minden incorporated into Protestant Prussia, its Protestant church parishes of the evangelical Lutheran parishes in Alswied, Blasheim, Gellenbeck, Lübbecke and Nettelstedt, and the independent evangelical Lutheran parish of St. Peter in Stockhausen, and the evangelical Free Church parish of Lübbecke. The only Roman Catholic parish is the parish of Lübbecke. In addition, there are several other small Christian and non-Christian religious communities. The breakdown of religious affiliation is illustrated by the example of schoolchildren in Hullhorst. Around 72% of the children are Protestant, 6.8% Roman Catholic, and 4.4% Islamic. 7.4% say they belong to other religions and 9.2% don't belong to any religion.